When you watch the mainstream media news, do you feel a little twitch? Is there a tingle in your left hand? Is your jaw locked? We have the solution. Welcome to Reasonable Arguments, the podcast where thoughtful debate meets unfiltered fun. Coming to you from Sarasota, Florida, we mix informed conservative commentary, playful banter, and just the right amount of nonsense to keep it entertaining. This is Reasonable Arguments, and now your host...
We are starting off the series of Ground Truth America with my cousin, Jim Connor, which I've never called you in your entire life. You're always going to be Alan to me. We reconnected a couple years ago on Facebook. And that's when I found out that you have had a career in the Navy. What made you decide to join the Navy?
I joined the Navy because I was always going to serve. I knew that. I just didn't know how long or what branch. I wanted to be a Marine. Then I wanted to be a Navy SEAL. Went back to the Marines. I didn't want to be in the Army. I didn't want to be in the Air Force. But I knew I didn't want to work in the steel mills, and I didn't want to work in a coal mine. And I certainly wasn't going to college. I was young and a poor student at the time. I just was bored with school. Yeah, I just showed up one day, actually at the Marine Corps recruiter, and I was waiting for him, and the Navy recruiter showed up, and he said all the right stuff, and I left the very next day for boot camp. So
Did you really? How old were you?
Yeah. I was 18.
Oh my goodness.
Yep. So signed up for the normal enlistment, and when that was up, I re-enlisted again. And by the time that enlistment up, you're at 8 years, and I thought, well, I'm going to go ahead and do my 20, and I would have stayed for 30, but I had some injuries and other stuff going on, so I decided, it's time to retire. So I retired at just over 20 years and went on to another career.
Wow, that's amazing. Okay, so when you retired, you were an HM1, right?
Correct.
And what is an HM1?
That is an E6, or like a staff sergeant in the Army or in the Marine Corps. So my overall job in the military, they have NECs or MOSs. Those are your job descriptions, and there are number designations for whatever your job is. And you can have multiple jobs. So I was a Quad Zero hospital corpsman. I was an 8404 field medical service tech with the Marine Corps. I was an 8479 biomedical repair technician, and 8478. And then I also became an instructor. So it was a whole lot of jobs. You wear a lot of hats, and depending on how you work your career is what you make of it. So I found out early on, the more you raise your hand, the cooler places you get to go. That you get to play with the cool toys. And I spent probably a third of my time with the Marine Corps infantry. But at one time or another, I was stationed on an Army base. I was stationed on an Air Force base, several naval hospitals, a couple ships, 47 countries or something like that. I mean, just,
wow.
Yeah, really, really cool. I wish that everybody could have a cool career like that, but like I said, it's what you make of it. And some people are just devastated once they get out of boot camp. They're like, this is not for me. And my poor wife, she was in the Air Force. She wanted to be an MP, and she didn't meet the height requirements at the time, and they made her a dental tech, and she hated it. She never left Texas from boot camp to her duty. Just she hated being a dental tech. She loved the Air Force. She
didn't meet the height requirement?
Yeah, that's what she tells me.
How tall do you have to be?
I don't know, but that was back in the early 80s. So I think she joined in 1980. So yeah, I could see there being requirements for something like that early on in the 80s. They were pretty discriminatory when it came to women back then.
Wow, that's crazy. So I find it funny that you say that you were a bad student, but yet, I mean, the advancement in your career in the military, it's outstanding.
Not really. I mean, you can go up to E10, and I only made it to E6. And the only reason I only made it to E6 was because the rank was never important to me. The money was never important to me. The medals were never important to me. I loved doing the job, whatever I was doing. I took an oath to the country, and that came above anything else, that and partying. So, I mean, you take your typical teenager to 27-year-old, as a civilian, I was doing the same thing. I mean, I was partying every chance I got, wherever country I was in, and doing the cool stuff. And when I was operational, it's hard to study while you're in the field, or whatever, and you can't take your books with you. And so, yeah, it's my own fault. I probably could have made Master Chief at one time or another. It wasn't important to me. I mean, I got medals and ribbons up to here, and nobody gives a shit these days. That and 25 cents will get you a cup of coffee.
What is something about your role in the Navy that civilians would misunderstand?
I think the biggest thing that civilians misunderstand, I heard this a lot. People say, I would have joined, but I don't like people yelling at me, or I would have never taken orders. And I think the biggest misunderstanding about the military and people's roles in it is, once you get through your initial training, it's really just a job. You just go to work every day. Now, granted, there are different job descriptions that put you in different situations that could be dangerous or whatever, but you're working as a team. Once you get out of boot camp and your initial training and everything like that, you're working as a team. Everybody pretty much has the same goal. And at the end of the day, if you're not in a war zone, or even if you are in a war zone, you stop at the end of the day. 12, 18-hour day, and that's it. You go home, you go party, you go to your wife, whatever it is that you do. And the next day you show up. Sometimes you PT, sometimes you don't. You go to work. My job, I'd say 50% of the time was in the morning. I would do sick call in the morning. I would see anywhere from 5 to 15 patients, and treat them for various things. And you go about your task of daily maintenance, or health record upkeep, and stuff like that. But yeah, civilians, they see the military as this machine or whatever, where you're constantly have somebody yelling at you. And it's the one thing that I always tell them is, there's always going to be an asshole in charge of somewhere, whether you're a civilian or whatever.
That's true.
And the 80-20 rule applies everywhere. 20% of the people do 80% of the work.
Yeah.
So yeah. Yep.
That's true. It's funny because as you're saying that, like I think I pictured in my mind that every day you were getting up at 4:00 in the morning, having to do your runs, go to work. And it's funny that you say that. And my stepson just enlisted in the Air Force in July, and he's 32 years old, which is kind of crazy that he enlisted so late. But I'm learning that now with him, that it is really just a life. It is a job. Go to work and come home. But okay, so saying that, how do things change when there's a threat or something is happening?
It's different for different people in the military. If you're stateside and something goes on, you may or may not go on alert. You may or may not be deployed. You may not even be deployable. If you're like in the Navy, if you're on shore duty and you have, say, you're a personnel man or a supply clerk or something like that, the chances of you being pulled away from your job to deploy somewhere are really slim. Now, my job as a corpsman, wherever there are sailors or Marines stationed in the world, you'll find corpsmen in every aspect, from embassy duty to a naval hospital overseas, to a hospital here in the States, to force recon, Marine infantry, air wing, Navy SEALs, submarines, even aircrew, rescue. We have SAR corpsmen, which are search and rescue. Yeah, there's a good chance you'll be deployed as a corpsman. But we understand that from the beginning. They tell us that. They tell us our history, and our history is just magnificent. And we have 23 Medal of Honor winners in our field. They are highly revered by the Marines, and we're taught that when we go to school. Never forget who you are or what you represent or what your job is. Your job is to keep as many Marines behind as many rifles as possible, by whatever means that means. So for the average person, when a threat goes down, for instance, I was forward deployed when 9/11 happened. I wasn't in the States. And so it was actually 9 for us when 9/11 happened. And they woke us up at 3 o'clock and 4 o'clock in the morning or something like that. And we were going to get underway. I mean, and we were underway within 2 hours. We got the entire crew together. But I had a lot of young people who had never seen combat, never been in a combat zone, and just freaking out. I'm just like, calm down. Everything's under control. It's going to be fine. And it was. There are people who are much higher trained than we are, who are heading that way. We're not going that way right now. But it's up to the senior. I was a senior petty officer at the time, and senior NCO, and it's up to us to calm everybody down. And we have an old saying. An old instructor told me somewhere that when your sugar turns to shit, you're not gonna rise to the occasion. You're gonna fall to your highest level of training, and it does. It really does. It kicks in for everybody. If the ship goes to general quarters, and you're in a hazardous area, you immediately go into your, every sailor is a firefighter, every Marine is a rifleman. You just go right into that training. It's muscle memory. I've had a discussion with my mom one time, years ago. She was in a beauty shop, and her friends were, I think I was deployed in the Gulf, and her friends had asked her, don't you worry about your son? And she goes, he's doing what he loves to do. And couldn't have said it any better. That is just it for, I would say, 98% of the people in the military. All those people won't stay 20 years, but they'll do their time, and they'll do the best they can. And we got our share of shitbags, but we got just some exemplary people that represent every climate corner of our country. Black, brown, white, southern, northern, whatever. And we all get along. We don't necessarily see color. We don't see gender. We are the experiment that people like to push shit on. Hence the DEI and all that shit that Biden put us through. Yeah.
Right.
So we don't like that.
Well, what about politics? Do you see a lot of politics happening?
I went through, Reagan, Bush, 5 presidents when I was active duty. And no, he was our commander in chief, regardless of who it was. And we really didn't, I don't recall taking sides at all, political wise. We may not have liked some decisions. When I was in Africa, I didn't like being in Somalia at all. But it definitely taught me a different aspect in the world, of what people don't get to see. And oftentimes nowadays, when I'm in conversations inside, I'm typically laughing at people because they had all these opinions. And brother,
they have no idea.
I've fucking seen how bad the world can be. And I have seen the absolute best that humans can be. But I tell you what, I've seen the absolute worst that they can be.
Obviously, current events that are happening now, and, we've had some updates today. I'm going to say reactions, because I think that's a lot of what this is. It's a lot of hating who the president is, and it's a lot of reacting because of that hate. And for someone who is trying to follow what is happening right now with Iran, what is the simple version of what's happening?
The simple version is, exactly what you're hearing on the news on one side is how I see it. I'm old enough to remember 1979 and Iran taking our hostages. And I remember my dad telling me stories of being in the Middle East in the 50s and going on liberty in these beautiful countries. And the people were just so friendly. The Persians and the Lebanese wasn't like that. It wasn't like that after 79. I treated the Marines that survived the bombing in Beirut. It's just devastating, what a certain type of people have done to a country, forced them to do. To answer your question, we saw an opportunity based on a threat. Now, we don't get the intel that the president gets by any means. And for anybody to sit there and say, well, he's just making shit up because he wants the oil, or he wants to make a name for, I don't know what other cause you would do something like this for, or the Israelis pushed him into this. He had intel, and it was his judgment. And if I was still active duty, I would say, okay, this is what we're doing, because the president has gotten information and he deemed it a threat. We're not just going after the threat anymore. We're saying, fuck that. We're tired of this shit. We don't want to do something that's just patch here and a patch there. These people, the Islamic regime, need to wake up. Your religion's fine. Do whatever the fuck you want. Yeah. Leave other people out of it. Wake up, step out of government, go pray to Allah or whatever you want to do. Okay. But the Persian people are not, for the most part, Islamic. They're forced to be. And so Trump saw something, and he's got an incredible Secretary of War, and he's got an incredible cabinet. Everybody has their weaknesses, but the sophistication and precision that this action has taken and used is incredible. It is phenomenal. The coordination of the different services and the different equipment that we used. For instance, we used our F-35 and F-22 stealth fighters not to drop bombs. They flew in undetected, and then they transmitted false radar images, okay? So that our F-15s and F-18s could go in under the radar and then pop up and then drop their bombs, precision bombs, right? I mean, just think about the coordination that took. Everything was by the minute, by the second, by the tomahawks or whatever else that we used. You know, there was so much electronic warfare going on. Our growlers went in and just shut down their radars, turned our lights off. You know, these people are just blind. It's incredible.
So Trump decides that, okay, this is what we're going to do. What is the time frame from when that word happens to when action happens?
24 to 48 hours, I think you could do that. All these plans have been written up. Our senior officers go to war college and they study all these tactics, and everybody, you know, for instance, like Norman Schwarzkopf, he wrote the best scenario for Desert Storm ever, and that's what they went with. 100 hours of ground combat, and it was done. But we pounded them for a month from the air. We're not going to see ground troops in Iran. You may have some special operators or CIA. The Israelis might have people on the ground already. I'm sure they do, because we got really good intel coming from where our bombs are supposed to hit. Ground troops aren't going to be necessary for this. We just need the cleanup of this regime and the poor people there. I mean, I keep seeing these videos of people, you know, who are somehow getting internet access, you know, and I saw one the other day. The woman said that is the biggest hindrance right now of the people taking over, is they don't have internet access. You know, they can't communicate across town or, you know, across the country to let them know that the Islamic regime is getting the shit kicked out of them. And they're not fighting back.
Wow.
They're not fighting back at all. They're launching rockets that aren't even guided. That's why they're hitting apartment buildings, you know, and stuff like this. They're not aiming those things. They're not guided to them. They just launch them and they hope they hit somewhere. You know, it's 20th century versus 21st century warfare, and they are woefully behind.
What do you tell somebody when they say Trump went into this without congressional approval? They blew up a school and killed a bunch of kids. What do you, as a former military person, what do you tell somebody?
Well, I'm smiling right now because my answer, almost every answer from this point on, is going to be, it depends on who's asking or saying. Because I've already accepted that TDS is a real thing. And just like I was telling you about the training in the military, you've trained so much that it becomes muscle memory. This isn't even a reaction from them on the left anymore. This is muscle memory. It's Trump has done something, I got to go against it. So very seldom can you get a real discussion out of anybody anymore from the other side.
That's true.
On the right, now I do have discussions and people are way off. They're not going against Trump or anything like that, but they just don't have good information and they're not critically thinking about it. If it comes to something like the war powers or anything like that, yeah, and I'll just point him to what's in writing. He's got 90 days, you know, because he saw a threat to do something. And that's his call. You know, he's not declaring war. This isn't a war. This is an action.
What's the 90-day thing?
If the president determines that there's a viable threat to the United States, he can activate the military and take military action to minimize or just eliminate the threat. You know, he has 90 days to complete that mission. Beyond that, then he has to either ask for an extension from Congress, or Congress has to declare war or say, bring everybody back. So, yeah, he's on a little bit of a timeline, but he's still doing really well, I think. I don't even think they have lights there now. You know, we've shut down their electrical grid, you know, and he didn't want to do that. You know, that's the funny part. He's negotiating the entire time from the first day of strikes. He called them and said, hey, did you want more of this or can we work something out? You know, and, you know, from everything that I've been seeing from those idiots, the generals and stuff like that are getting on Iran TV or whatever and telling, we've shot down Americans and, you know, we're never going to quit. And we have assets that the Americans are unaware of. Well, if you're limited to the information that you get, you're either going to believe it and live in fear. And the Persians, who just want to live their life, they're unarmed. It takes a lot of balls to run towards gunfire when you're unarmed. But that's really what needs to happen. They need to gather up every bit of courage that they have and just get rid of these people. We don't just tell them we don't want you here anymore, and have some kind of plan in case it does happen, and they're able to govern themselves. They need somebody that they can trust and somebody that's not Islamic. You know, I mean, you could be Islamic, you know, but I mean, once you say you're Islamic over there, if you're not following the rules of Islam, then you're going to end up dead.
I'm going to be honest with you. Like, I go down rabbit holes, right? I'm sure you've heard of Q and all of this being a military ops and everything is going according to plan from 2015. I almost believe that this is all part of a plan to take down something bigger. But how close are we to this becoming something bigger?
Yeah. Well, there's some pretty stubborn people out there, and those stubborn people are in charge. And they're not afraid to throw bodies at something. I go back to Desert Storm again. Desert Shield was really the winning factor in Desert Storm. We were there in August, right after Kuwait was invaded. It wasn't until January that we started the air war. But all that time, we had our Green Berets, our recon, in Kuwait, in Iraq, setting stuff up. And once we started the air war, they went 30 days. So 30 days, January 16th to February 24th or something like that. Everything was so pounded that by the time we crossed the line, minor skirmishes here or there, but we took 100,000 prisoners, and all they wanted to do was eat. They were thirsty for fresh water and they wanted to eat. They knew that we had MREs. They knew how to say cherry nut cake. But this is what we're doing. This is what they've chosen to ride this out. And we're just, it's an action of attrition at this point. You can only go so long without feeding your soldiers before they just lay down their guns and walk away.
Right.
And that's what happened with Iraq. The officers left first. They left all their enlisted troops to fend for themselves, and by the time we came, those who chose to fight didn't fight very long. They were hungry. They were hungry and scared. And I remember sitting in a hole in the ground as the B-52s dropped their bombs and the ground would just rumble. And I remember feeling sorry for the enemy because they were ordered to be in these trenches or whatever, and they're being buried alive. So, yeah, I mean, I would hate to be an Iranian soldier right now. It just, having been in the military, you've taken an oath and you want to do the best you can for your country or whoever's in charge and everything like that. But fuck, Jen, if they're leaving you out to dry, you got to get back to your family.
The Strait of Hormuz that, is the big issue. What does that look like for you guys? Does that impact the Navy right away?
Yeah, we have certain ships that we're going to keep out of that area because, like, an aircraft carrier can't operate in the straits. They can go through there, but very slow, and you can't launch aircraft when you're going slow. And our carriers are very valuable. Our smaller ships, our frigates, our destroyers, stuff like that, they'll probably pass back and forth there. They may even be unofficially escorting ships through there. As far as the sailors on board, they're just at work. They're just a little more adrenaline going, but they're just at work. They're doing their thing. They're making their ship go, and the captain's getting orders, and he's following those orders, and he passes those orders down to the crew, and everybody does their job. There's 300 different jobs on a ship, and it takes everybody to do that job. So they're in a little bit of danger because these rockets can be launched or drones or anything like that. But the ships have the phalanx system on it and good radar, good return radar. Something's launched at them. Our phalanx systems, we used to say, if it flies, it dies. And I've seen these things operate where they'll shoot a missile out of the sky and then begin to shoot the little pieces of the missile. So it's pretty incredible the way these things operate. So they are in danger. There's always a risk of something getting through, but you get used to it. Really, they just want to come home. It's like any other deployment. Yeah. It's exciting for the first 2 months, and then you're bored. And
the adrenaline goes away.
Well, depending on where what kind of deployment. If you're just on a ship and you're not really, it's like Groundhog Day, day after day. If you're with the infantry or a special ops unit, it's different. Your adrenaline never stops if you're on the ground. You have heightened adrenaline, but your adrenaline never comes. As a matter of fact, it still doesn't go away. I'm still on alert wherever I go. Some guys get addicted to it, and I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing. Some of our best fighters are just burned out, and others they just want more. So it's a personality thing when it comes down to that. They say living in a combat zone is 98% sheer boredom and then separated by seconds of sheer terror. So pretty much what it is.
So when something like this is happening right now, do you ever have that feeling that you want to be back in it?
I don't know any of my combat veteran buddies that don't. I mean, I don't know what I could do. I got a bad back and bad knees and everything else, but damn, man, I'd try. I mean, I'm here on the home front. So I got my shit. I told the wife and told the kids and everybody else what to do when shit goes down. And I'm too old now to go on the offensive. So we're making a stand here. If shit goes down, we're going down in a pile of brass.
What are things that people are getting wrong about this now? What are people focused on that really has nothing to do with anything?
Well, again, I'll go back to the two different types of people that you're asking about. Now, my wife and I are pretty good about switching channels just to see what the other side's saying. And I will say that one of the things that people are getting wrong, and I see this not only with the conflict over there, but things going on with ICE and, stuff like that, is the AI. I see these videos and I pick up on it real fast. The airplane in the background's too small, or look, that guy has 3 arms, and the Iranians have really done a good job putting the stuff out there, and the left jumps on that faster than, whatever. And you could even point out the flaws in the videos or the pictures that they're seeing online and social media. Even the news will start picking up on this stuff, and then they'll find out later that it's not that. And we'll go back to that muscle memory. The media is smart. I mean, they are telling people what they want to hear, and you're seeking out what you want to hear. I like your article the other day. I mean, you're spot on. You're going to seek out what you want to hear. If you're not capable of
Yeah.
discerning questionable information, if you're not capable of doing a little bit of research on the capabilities of the military, the capabilities of ICE, the capabilities of our government, certainly we have crooked politicians. Nobody would ever question that. But I see what the people on the left, politicians, say, and the politicians on the right. I look at people like Adam Schiff. Who votes these people back in? Maxine Waters and all that stuff. And we have a couple of our own that I'm like, you're way past your prime there, buddy, and you're just, I don't know what's causing you to vote in any direction. I think that's what people get wrong. They jump on something out of muscle memory, and they want it to be.
I think what it is people don't realize that there's been an issue with Iran for as long as there has.
No, they don't. They don't. And here's the other thing is, and you and I both know this, the Democrats are the masters at taking advantage of a situation to cover up for another situation. I mean, what's the Hillary statement? Never lose the opportunity of a crisis to sway people's eyes. And so, and that old phrase where, if somebody's accusing you of doing something, it's because you're doing it yourself. So certainly they feel that this is a cover up.
When people are seeing the news and seeing everything that's happening and, obviously thinking that another war is going to start, what are things that they're worried about that maybe they shouldn't be?
Exclusively with Iran, I don't think they have the capability to wage war anymore. I think Trump's right. I think we're right around the corner of this ending. And the ending is the cleanup of that regime. That's it. That's it. I mean, you don't need to dismantle the army. You don't need to dismantle the police or anything else. You need to take away the people who are forcing the people to think a certain way. And that's it. So I really think that we're at that point where we are pinpoint targeting stuff. And every day they're talking to them, saying, what else do you want to go without? Because until you walk away, I think that's what Trump's waiting on. He's waiting on the right person to step into a leadership role that we can trust, that we know, or the people love, and we can go from there. Yeah, I think this is well thought out. Trump's been talking about this for, 30, 40 years? So, yeah.
Right. Right. And so now with the countries that now are backing him, the 6 countries that have decided to back him, does this change anything with China?
China and Russia have their own problems, Russia especially. China is such a large country, and the stuff that you see on TV is such a small part of China. And they have their own issues. I don't think that, nothing is going to go into a large conflict here. This is all going to get worked out. It's the art of the deal. Yeah, I mean, if we see ships, then we're negotiating something. I think if China wants that oil, they ought to be escorting the tankers out of there. What's wrong with that? I don't see anything wrong with that.
From your experience, how is world conflict compare to what is actually shown on the media? So you're out of it now and you're watching it play out on TV. How different is it when you're actually involved in it?
And in the military, it goes both ways. I've been on the ground and I've seen things happen, and your rules of engagement are there, or orders are coming from Washington, and it's not an immediate thing. So you have to make decisions and take actions based on what's happening at your feet. Whereas people 10 miles from you or 100 miles from you or 1,000 miles away from you are making decisions based on relayed information, and it can be a little frustrating. And for the average, I would say E3 and below, their sight picture is within 20 people. Their platoon, their company, or whatever it is, or their squad. It's not until you become an NCO or senior NCO or an officer that you start to gain a larger picture of what's going on. Had a experience. I had to medevac a Marine one time, and I was in that zone, and I was an E4, so I was the senior corpsman and had to medevac this Marine. And all this time, we were wondering what's going on around us, 40 miles from us, 100 miles from us. And when the helicopter took off and we got up to about 3,000, 4,000 feet, something like that, I was able to see the expanse of the entire process, all the vehicles, the troops on the ground, the movements that were happening. And I was just like, this is amazing. It was like a choreography. I mean, just all these things moving in unison, all for one purpose. And it triggered something in me that I was like, wow, I'm just this little cog in the wheel, but I have a purpose here, and everybody else does, and it all comes together. So I don't know that everybody ever gets that epiphany, but I think people in the military are very smart, especially nowadays. I don't. It's hard to know what they think now. But on the ground, you're just a grunt. You're just a grunt. You're there to kill or be killed, and take an objective. It's not stupid. I don't want it to come off that way. They're not dumb. They don't just blindly walk into machine guns or anything like that. They do it effectively because they're trained effectively. You train the way you fight the way you train, and that's what they do.
Well, I think, I think looking at it, like, I would almost think it would be easier to not know everything that's going on. Like, you're in your world and you're doing what you're doing, but to, like you said, you had that high level view, which was amazing, but the reality of seeing what was happening, you took it in a way that was great, right? Like, look at all of this is happening. Everybody's working together and doing whatever needs to be done. But I would have to think that for some military people, it's better to not have everything in your face like everybody does now. Like, think before
Yeah.
social media, or think before anything like that. You watch the news, you had at 6 o'clock, 11 o'clock, and whatever breaking news there was, that's all you had. Now with social media, it is constantly in your face, and you really can't escape it. You can't escape it ever unless you just go completely black and
Yeah.
off grid. But I would think being in the military and being where you're at and doing what you're doing would be better to focus and stay on track with just what needs
Yeah.
to be done.
Well, I mean, you get daily briefs, of what's going on, but you're right with the social media. I mean, Facebook wasn't out when I was in. I don't even think MySpace was out, but we did have internet access, and email and stuff like that. So I would get news from home much better than writing letters. I remember those days, or 3 stacks of quarters to make phone calls. um, um, yeah, I don't know what I would think if I had all the access, because you're limited on time, and a lot of times you could see information, it just doesn't make any difference to you, because where are you going to go? You're trained. You're certainly allowed to have a political affiliation when you're in the military, but you are not allowed to talk down against the president or anything like that. You are in uniform, especially. I've seen a lot of people get in trouble with their TikToks because they're doing stuff in uniform, active duty, good or bad. You need to be careful of what you say. Have your own opinion. You vote the way you want to vote, but you are not the voice of America. Just do your job. If you don't like it, then get out. That's it.
Right. I would agree with that. If there was one thing that you could change about the military, what would it be?
I was in a very unique time. President Reagan was president when I joined, and he gave us the largest raise anybody's ever got in the military. and he built a 700 ship fleet. We were the big stick for Reagan, and we felt good. We had our minor conflicts in Grenada and Panama, but everybody felt good about that. And I watched the progression of technology and training and the good and the bad of the social politics within the military. Tailhook, I don't know if you know what that is. That was a major happening that ended up turning into a very good thing for women in the military. It was a bad thing that happened, but turned into a really good thing. Anyway, I think that the military is a good thing. Like I said, we have good and bad people, and the bad people don't last very long. They're usually run out. I can't think of anything that I would change about the military.
Since you went through so many presidents in your time, do you notice changes with each
Oh, very much.
presidency within
Very
the
much.
military?
When Clinton was president, I lost a lot of friends to his, what they call that. There's an acronym for it, but he thinned out the military big time, and he was going after people who were slightly overweight. He even put a memorandum out that if you know somebody who's not doing their job, please report them. I wasn't fond of him as a president. I was in Somalia when he was president, and the Black Hawk went down, and he refused to send to artillery support or air support. So those Rangers were stuck there. Yeah, that was a bad time. Yeah, I've seen good and bad, but take it as you can. Having trained with the Marines, you're hardcore. You want to do the best that you can with whatever you got, And the Marines are famous for getting their annual budget and taking 2/3 of it and giving a third back and saying, we can get by with what we have. Yeah, I loved my time in the military. I wish, like I said, everybody could have had such a cool and colorful career.
What was your favorite country
My
you were
favorite
in?
country? Hey, I am a sucker for Hong Kong and Singapore, and the Seychelles Islands off of Africa. Beautiful. They say that's the original Garden of Eden. They have heart-shaped coconuts there. Yeah, my dad, he was in the war during the Korean War. He was an aviation bosun's mate. He worked on an aircraft carrier.
Oh,
Yep.
I did not know that.
Yep. Yeah, I have a picture of him that I blew up in Greece back in the 50s, and somewhere in my collection, I have the exact same picture of me sitting almost in the exact same spot. I
That's
can't find the picture
awesome.
anywhere, but I want to get it blown up so I can put them side by side. I was in my whites, he was in his blues.
That's fantastic. I love that. I thank you so much for joining me with this. My goal is to kind of just help people kind of see it from
Yeah.
different angles, open the mind a little bit,
So
and
you're perfect. Reasonable arguments. That's all I
yeah.
ever ask for. I like to argue. Bring it to me. But come with an argument. Don't just spout stuff. So yeah, your articles are spot on. I really enjoy them.
Thank you. I get harassed about my title because of course I'm a Trump supporter. The one thing, and Jamie always says this about me, is that I'm the voter that people want because I only voted for Trump. I registered to vote for Trump when I was 45 years old. Had Kamala or whoever come up against him and convinced me that they were the right person, it would have been different maybe after that. But I haven't seen that. So I'm not necessarily party loyal.
Yeah, neither are we.
That's just what blows my mind of how manipulated
Very
these
much.
people are to
Very much.
hate.
Having lived out in Oregon, I'd go to work every day and I'd have to talk to people on the left, and especially when Trump was starting to run and everything like that. And I said, this is exactly what the country needs. Before he was even president the first time, I said, we need a CEO in charge. We don't need a politician. Now, politicians are polished and they have agendas, and they went to college to become this person. Trump is not that. He runs this as a business. He's got a plan for everything. And people say it all the time, he's playing 4D chess, and he's 9 steps ahead of people. I mean, it's amazing.
He is a
He really,
smart
really
man.
is. My mom, she never voted in her life, ever, until Trump, and she voted against him. I mean, you'll just start pulling up facts or logic or stuff like this, and she goes, I just don't want to talk about it anymore. I just don't like the man. And I go, just say that. Just say that. Just to stop all the bullshit that you're trying to say. And anytime a subject on politics comes up, just go, I don't like Trump. And that answers everything. Everything. Just that simple.
That's funny because my dad is polar opposite.
He doesn't like Trump? Oh, okay.
He loves Trump.
Okay.
Oh, he loves Trump. Oh, yeah.
The last conversation I had with your dad, he was asking me about deploying. I've made 7 deployments. He says, do you approve of sending troops over to sit in Kuwait or Iraq or wherever? And I said, hey, it must have been post 9/11. And I said, absolutely. So long as we, the military, are willing to go over there and get the bad guys aren't here. And you guys can go blissfully about your life and not worry, because men are out there doing what needs to be done. Now, Biden kind of negated that with letting it. I'm telling you, from everything that I'm seeing, we got a lot of bad people in the United States.
Well, thank you again for joining me. I loved having this conversation. We definitely have to talk more because this was fantastic. So, but thank you again, and thank you for your service. I had no idea you spent that much time in the Navies. I know your sister's very proud of you. Darrell and I had that conversation at one point, so I know she's very proud of everything that you've done.
I'll tell you what I tell everybody
we
when they say
appreciate
thank you for your service. I always say, you were worth it, Jen.
This has been Reasonable Arguments, News and Nonsense. There is so much BS on the mainstream media news, but you knew that. We hope you enjoyed the show. If you did, make sure to like, rate, and review. We'll be back soon. See you next time.